Oh my god, what's going on here? It's like a 316 graveyard. uh, I'm just going to make a quick update video on this 316 frame swap project, or whatever you want to call it, since this took another interesting turn. Basically, to sum things up, my plan was to take the engine and the sheet metal from this 84 316 and put it on the 87 frame, but I gave it a little bit more thought, and I realized, you know what, even if I make this a nice machine, my dad and my brother are not going to want to use it when I'm away at college, because I'm not obviously going to be able to do any lawn mowing when I'm away, so I don't really need the old heavy machine to do the mowing. And my dad and my brother aren't very mechanically inclined at all, so they're not going to want to wrench on these things all the time, and I don't trust my brother driving these old things anyway. And I figured, you know, I can't have my dad relying on an old, 30-something-year-old machine. So I figured, instead of getting him a zero turn, that was the original plan, to get him a zero turn, I'm going to, what I'd like to do is, once I finish this project, sell both of these 316s, even though it makes me sick. Sell both of the 316s and get my dad something like a 345 or a GT 235 or something along those lines. You know, a medium-duty garden tractor that's not, not too old, not too expensive to fix, and can mow the lawns, and if I absolutely need to, or like if I'm home for the summer or something, I can use it to mow all my customers' lawns without any issues. So I figured we would compromise there. So my plan is to get these two machines straightened out and taken care of, and then throw them up for sale. Yeah, sorry about the fan noise. We're dealing with a lot of flies for some reason. I mean, look at these. Look at these damn things. We've been killing thousands of them around here, and I don't know where they're coming from. So, yeah, it's not fun having them around. But anyway, so I have crossed the threshold with this project. I've made a couple interesting turns and done some things I've never done before working on these old garden tractors. So like I said, my plan was to take the rebuilt engine out of this 316 and take the sheet metal off of it and swap it over to the frame from the 87, which you can see right here. Now what I wanted to do was, clean up the 87 frame, paint it all up nice again, and then what I wanted to do was dump some money into it and put in my dual brake pedals, maybe H2 hydraulics, an electric fuel pump, 3-point hitch, like all that kind of stuff. But I realized, like I said before, my dad's not going to need to use that machine. That's overkill for mowing the lawn, and that's a lot of money that I really don't need to spend. I really should be saving now that I'm really turning towards college mode. So, I figure, you know what, as fun as it would be, in the position I'm in right now, it's just not worth it. And it makes me sick to say that, because this tractor had a lot of potential, but I figure, you know what, once I'm out of college, then I'll have money and I'll have lots of time to, build my own shop and buy more tools, more equipment, and really build something that I want. So it'll probably be like a beefed up 318 or something like that, but that's, since I'm going into 4 years of college, working on these old garden tractors is kind of at the bottom of my list, and it makes me sick to say that, but, I just have to prioritize. So instead of going through and spending all that money beefing up this machine, I started taking parts off of it, taking good parts off of it. So as you can see, the biggest thing, which is something I've never done before, I dropped the transmission out of this one last night. And just today, I spent the afternoon dropping the transmission out of the 84. And I've never had to drop a transmission out, or a transaxle out of a garden tractor before, so this was kind of interesting. I really just looked it over, and in a matter of about 2.5 hours, I got this one out, and then I spent about an hour today and got this one out. So it really wasn't too hard, considering that I have, the most basic of tools. I don't have the best tools for working on these things, but I make do with what I have. It was interesting, to say the least. So what I was planning to do is, I found out that this transmission, this is a Peerless 2600 with a Sunstrand 15U pump. This is what most of the late 300 series tractors used. The earlier ones used a Dana rear axle. But this is a Peerless with a Sunstrand pump, and for some reason this either the pump or the gear case had a horrible leak, and I think I showed it in my last video. You could see the spots, the streaks of oil going up and down the driveway. This thing would just leak and leak and leak all over the place while I was running once it got good and hot. And I said, you know what, I can't, you know, I can't, if I'm gonna mow with this thing or keep it around anyway for a little bit before I sell it, I can't have it leaking oil everywhere. Not to mention the linkage was a little worn, and the return lines and everything, this line right here was completely dry rotted. So I figured and a couple seals on it were leaky too, more than one. So I figured, you know what, rather than tear it apart and try and clean it up and fix it, I might as well tear it out and swap it with the one from the other 316, which you can see over here. Now this was something I never got to before the fire. This transmission is in great shape, you know, nice paint and everything. It even had a fresh oil change and filter put on last year when it was restored, so I don't have to worry about that. But the main thing, actually, that the previous owner told me about before I bought the tractor was that the charge pump seal was leaking, or the input seal, or whatever you want to call it. And at the time, I had never torn an Onan engine up. I had never torn a 300 series apart. I never had a transmission out, or I never, you know, I just got the tractor. I didn't know, you know, I didn't feel like tearing the Onan out of it. I was planning to do this when I had the P218 out of it over the winter, but I just never got around to it. It would just drip, drip, drip on the floor, little spots everywhere. And I figured it wasn't too hard of a fix, but like I said, I didn't really have the experience, so I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I didn't want to mess something up. So that was the only thing that this transmission really needed. Otherwise, everything else was good. The linkage was tight, and everything worked good. It was strong, and it wasn't leaking all over the place like the other transmission over there. That's got a couple bad seals, but the only bad seal was this input seal right here, which is, from what I understand, is pretty common with these pumps. And the other thing, the two pressure relief valves, this one was replaced, and then this one had a bit of a leak, so I shipped it off and had it rebuilt for about $50, and then I put it back in, and the thing was still leaking, so I figured it's got to be the charge pump seal. So this transmission and pump is pretty much ready to go. The lines are all there, nothing's dry rotted, and nothing really wrong with it. Now that I got this seal put in, I just did this today. You just have to, this is the charge pump, this piece right here, which is attached to the main pump housing. All you have to do is pop these two bolts out, and then there's a gear on the inside, and you just pry the seal out with a screwdriver and pop the new seal in. Pretty simple. So I did that today and got it back and installed, and I have to put it level because it's on the jack stand right now. It's leaning back, but so far it hasn't leaked, so that's a good thing. And I just kept adding fluid to it every once in a while, so we should be alright. I don't think it really needs a change, because I don't want to have to change that brand new filter anyway. I spent a couple hours last night and tonight swapping pulling the transaxles out, and it wasn't too hard. I just had to, you know, for not having the right tools, it really wasn't that bad. I just had to look it over a little bit, and all I had to do was disconnect one or two lines, disconnect these two bolts here and here on this brace where it bolts under the frame, and then disconnect two bolts here and two bolts there, and disconnect the brake linkages, which you can see there. And once I lifted up on the frame, it pretty much pulled right out. So I just had to find something to hold the frame up so I could roll the axle out. That wasn't too bad. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm beat for tonight, so I'm not gonna worry about putting the other transaxle in yet. That'll be another night's project. It shouldn't be too hard though, now that I know what I'm doing. So I'll clean it up and everything. Okay guys, so it's been about maybe 3 or 4 days since I made the first part of this video. Today's Sunday, and I spent a good part of Wednesday, Thursday, and yesterday getting this thing back together. If you ever plan to swap a transmission in one of these old garden tractors, my advice would be don't do it, because there will be a lot of cussing and cuts, bleeding, frustration, and other things. So I would advise you not to do it. I got about halfway through this project and I realized, you know what, maybe I was better off just swapping everything over to this frame. But I had a change of mind because I didn't want to tear into a complete tractor. For the most part, complete. It was already functioning and everything. And I was also afraid of how whether some parts may swap over or not. For example, the hydro linkage from this one is different than the hydro linkage on this one, and other things too. So I had to be careful, and I just decided, you know what, this tractor is already mostly complete, so let me just pull the transmission out and swap in the other one. So after lots of frustration and cuts and bruises and borrowing some tools and cussing the engineers that design these things, we finally got this transmission in. As you saw in the first part of this video, I got both transmissions out pretty easily. That wasn't too bad, but of course putting this one in was the hardest part, because the frame is a C-channel steel. You can't really tell from here, but the frame has this bend in it here, and then you have this brace that holds the brake rod in place, and then this strap, which is supposed to act as a lock nut for the mounting bolts. So you have to lift this out of the way and basically slide the frame back. Like, you have to prop the transmission up and slide the frame back so this C-channel goes right over top of the case where it bolts in, and you have to hold this brace up. So there's like a very thin amount of room for you to work with on both sides, and then you have to get everything lined up. And I borrowed that chain hoist from my uncle, and I used that to hoist the frame of the tractor up, and then I had my floor jack and another floor jack getting it under there, and in the process I punctured the oil filter, which was actually pretty new. I think it was put on last year right before I bought the other 316. You can't really see it there, but this transmission case is so heavy that when I had the belly screen off, it just fell. Like, I didn't have it propped up, it just fell and hit the floor, and it broke the oil filter and started leaking oil everywhere, as you can see. So so I had a hard time there. That's why I had to get a second jack and get some help, because these things are just so darn heavy, and I needed someone to help me, roll it forward and back to line it up, because one person can't simply do that. So I went to John Deere and I got a new oil filter for it and put that on yesterday, and I had some extra high guard oil laying around, so I topped off the oil level. I think I added just a little bit too much, because you can see how it kind of leaked, but I'll just clean that off. It's dripping on the floor, but once that kind of recedes, then it should be fine. So it basically flushed all the old dirty oil out of the transmission in the process, because it leaks so much. As you know from before, I changed the charge pump seal, so that's nothing to worry about now. I had some trouble figuring out where the lines go. There's two lines on top of the charge pump. I couldn't exactly remember which one went where, but I kind of messed around and experimented with it, and got them hooked up, and they should be good to go. I had to adjust the turnbuckle for the control linkage. I put the belly screen on. I shouldn't have done this yet, but I don't know if you can see that there's a turnbuckle right there, which basically adjusts the tension in the linkage. It basically adds or removes slop. It adds or removes the slop in the linkage, or like to loosen or tighten it up. So I had to actually turn that out a little bit, because when I first got the transmission mounted up and hooked up the drive shaft and got the lines hooked up and fired it up while it was in neutral, it started rolling backwards, so it was stuck in reverse. So I had to adjust the turnbuckle to straighten that out. And there's the lever on the transmission, it's forward is for reverse. When you pull it forward, puts it in reverse, and when you pull it backward, it puts it in forward. So there's a very slim neutral area in between, so I had to keep starting it up and making sure it was in neutral when I tightened the linkage down, and then I had to adjust the turnbuckle a couple turns and tighten it back down. I also swapped the gas tank over from the other 316 because I had recently cleaned it out, and it has a fuel gauge on it too, and I put a new pickup line in this one too. Last year I added a piece of Tygon, that ethanol resistant fuel line, because over time the ethanol rots away at the pickup lines inside these tanks, and it just when the line falls off, the machine won't run very long because it doesn't get enough fuel. So I figured this tank's probably dirty. I'll clean it out before I get rid of it. But I had already cleaned out the tank from the other 316 last year, and I put a new piece of pickup line in it. So I just mounted that one up. So, and then this motor probably has about 15 or 20 hours on it since the rebuild. I kind of wish it had an hour meter, but it doesn't. But I figured I'd flush the crankcase and everything, so I took it across the street. I changed the oil yesterday. I put a quart and a half of Pennzoil straight 30 weight in it. I would have rather used my Shell Rotella oil that I had laying around, but the guy who rebuilt it put straight 30 in it from the start. So when you break an engine in with new rings, you don't really want to change to a different kind of oil. You want to keep the same oil in it. So I just put Pennzoil straight 30 in it. And it seems to be running pretty good. I mean, aside from the carburetor being finicky, but I'm still debating whether I want to get a rebuild kit for it or not. I'd pay someone else to rebuild it because I'm not good with these Odin carburetors. After trying to find a carb rebuild kit for my uncle's 318 with the Linamar repower, which has an emissions carb on it, I decided to stay away from messing with Onan carbs because they're so expensive and the kits are hard to find for some of them, and they're very picky, especially if they have an accelerator pump. They're very difficult to work with, so you have to really know what you're doing if you take one of these carbs apart. I also, when I went to John Deere yesterday, I got the new fuses and stuck them in. I had the correct fuses because the ones that I got from Napa were not the right size for those fuse slots in the wiring, so I got the right fuses. And a new circuit breaker too. You can't see it, but I installed a new circuit breaker just to eliminate the possibility that the engine would shut down after 30 minutes of mowing, because I thought maybe it was a circuit breaker tripping or something. So I troubleshooted, and I had to change a couple different things to hopefully eliminate that problem. I still have to put the mower deck on it and see, but I think we should be good to go now, because the last fuse actually was blown. The 20 amp fuse was blown. I thought maybe the circuit breaker caused that. So new circuit breaker and new fuses and new battery connectors too, since the other ones weren't clamping on tight. So let's start this thing up and back it out of here. The choke is really picky on this. I actually, in the process of lifting it up with the chain hoist, I actually broke the choke knob off. Come on. Transmission's pretty strong, although it does need some adjusting still. See what I mean? Once it warms up, it doesn't need the choke, but it's picky. I'm debating if I want to have the carb rebuilt before I sell it. Because at this point, I mean, aside from a little TLC, that's all it really needs is a carb rebuild. So I have to tighten the seat down, I think. Yeah, that just goes to show you how messed up this carburetor is. It's also nice not having the rotted rims on the back either. I don't know what I'm going to do with the transmission. I'll probably just scrap it if I can't get any money for it. The wheels are junk anyway. That's why you don't run calcium. You want to run rim guard if you need liquid weight in the tires. One of the axle seals here has a slight leak. I'm just going to clean it up. It's not really a big deal, and they're not too hard to change either. I'll just clean them up. The whole tractor actually needs to be cleaned up just from being dusty because I was driving it in the field yesterday. But as much as it pains me to sell it, I think right now that's my best bet. I'd like to use the money and use the rest of the insurance money to get GX 345 that I'm looking at, which is in really nice shape for a good price too. So once I get out of college a few years from now, I'll be ready to buy more old garden tractors. I'd like to buy a 318 and build it up into something big, like put a 420 rear in it and add extra hydraulics and stuff like that to it. But that'll come in the future, but not right now. I can't focus on stuff like that right now while I'll be, you know, away at college 4 hours away. So ever going to swap a 300 series transmission, make sure you have lots of patience and a couple extra people to help you. That's all I'm going to say. I also figured out why the brakes were hanging up. I think the linkage was just binding up or tight or something. Just needed to be greased, but it works fine now. If you take your foot off the brake or you lock the parking brake and then unlock it, it's fine. So it doesn't get hung up. The engine still bogs a little bit, but I think a carburetor rebuild will fix that. Leaking trails of oil all over the street now either. All safety switches work. Not too shabby. We'll see what happens with this thing next. I'm going to try and get it up for sale. I'm going to put the mower deck on it and try cutting the grass with it today and see if it blows any more fuses. Either way, it's going to get put up for sale soon. So, all right, thanks for watching, guys.